The heels clicked sharply against the polished marble, each echo bouncing down the cavernous hallway of the office building. Normally, she would have left hours ago, but tonight was different. Something in the air felt off, an almost imperceptible tension, a shift in the rhythm of silence. She paused, her instincts prickling, and glanced toward the glass-walled conference room. A shadow flitted across the floor, vanishing before she could pinpoint it. Her breath caught. It wasn't supposed to happen. She had always been cautious, always aware of her surroundings. Yet tonight, the building, which usually smelled of disinfectant and paper, reeked faintly of something metallic, like blood, or perhaps fear. A chill crept up her spine. She fumbled for her phone in her bag, the familiar weight a small comfort. Her daughter, Lily, was waiting at the office daycare just a floor below, an arrangement she had made when long hours became unavoidable. The thought of her little girl in that silent, dimly lit building sent an electric jolt of fear racing through her veins. Normally, she would have shrugged off the unease, blamed fatigue, or chalked it up to imagination. Tonight, she knew better. "Hello," she whispered into the phone, even though no one had called yet. Only the echo of her own voice answered. The door to the hallway creaked. She froze, heart hammering, eyes darting toward it. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall, broad, and deliberate in movement. The CEO instinctively reached for the panic alarm beneath her desk, her fingers brushing the cold plastic, but she hesitated. Something about the figure made her pause. He wasn't rushing, wasn't waving a weapon, yet there was an undeniable aura of authority and control around him. Before she could process it, a muffled scream cut through the silence, a tiny, panicked voice calling her name. "Mommy." Her heart stopped. It was Lily. The scream came from the daycare area. The CEO bolted toward the stairwell, abandoning the clicking heels for bare urgency, and her instincts screamed that this was no ordinary threat. This was a targeted intrusion. Her mind raced. A robbery? Unlikely. Her office held little cash. Her employees had no reason to be violent. And yet, someone had come here tonight, and they knew exactly where her daughter would be. As she rounded the corner, her eyes caught movement. The tall figure from before was there again, crouched low, as if anticipating the next moment. He made a subtle gesture, a simple wave of the hand, and she realized, with a jolt, that he was not her enemy. Somehow, instinctively, she knew he was here to help. But before she could approach, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall. Panic surged through her chest. She wanted to charge forward, to grab Lily herself, but she remembered the figure's calm presence. Something told her to stop, to let him act first. And then the first message came through her phone. Just a single line, cold and terrifying. "Don't call anyone. We have your daughter." Her hands trembled as she gripped the phone. The screen felt heavier than ever, the words etched into her mind like ice. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't random. Someone had planned this meticulously. The panic that had threatened to overwhelm her now transformed into a sharp, dangerous clarity. Every instinct screamed, "Do not make a sound. Do not act rashly. One wrong move, and it could be over." She glanced at the man again. He stood as still as a statue, eyes scanning the corridor, calculating, ready. Something about the steadiness in his posture, the way he exhaled slowly and deliberately, gave her a small measure of hope. He wasn't a threat, he was a lifeline. Her thoughts raced. Who was he? A security guard? A passerby? Perhaps even a police officer in plain clothes? There was no time to question it now. She had to trust him. The footsteps came closer, sharper, echoing against the walls. She could see shadows moving faster now, a chaotic blur in the distance. The single dad, she couldn't stop herself from mentally labeling him that, crouched, assessed, and then sprinted ahead, fluid, decisive, protecting the path to her daughter. She wanted to call out, to scream, to run, but something held her back. Every fiber of her being told her, he knows what he's doing. And then, just for a moment, their eyes met. There was no time for introductions, no space for fear. Just an unspoken understanding. This man would protect her child, and somehow, against all odds, he would not fail. The hallway stretched endlessly ahead, but she followed his lead. Each step forward carried the weight of terror and hope intertwined. Somewhere beyond those doors, Lily was waiting, and the first true action of rescue had begun. The CEO's heart pounded like a drum as she followed the man down the dimly lit hallway, her mind racing faster than her feet could carry her. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist, forming shapes that were almost human, almost threatening. And then it happened. A tiny, terrified sob echoed from the room ahead, the unmistakable sound of her daughter. "Lily!" Her breath caught. The voice of a child in danger had a way of stripping all composure, all professionalism, away in an instant. She stumbled forward, panic clawing at her chest, ready to burst into the room, but the man, the single dad, placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Not harsh, not stopping her violently, but insistent. His eyes locked onto hers with a quiet intensity that left no room for hesitation. "Stay back," he whispered, his voice low but unwavering. "Trust me. One wrong move, and it could get worse." She blinked, startled by the calm authority in his tone. For a CEO used to commanding boardrooms and navigating crises, this was a new kind of authority, raw, immediate, and entirely instinctive. There was something about him that screamed experience, a life lived on alert, a mind that had faced danger before and survived. And right now, survival was all that mattered. She watched as he moved ahead, crouching slightly, every motion deliberate. Her daughter's cries grew louder, closer, filling the oppressive silence of the hallway with fear. The man pressed his finger to his lips, a silent command to stay quiet, then gestured for her to follow from behind. She obeyed, heart hammering, adrenaline burning in her veins. The door at the end of the hallway was partially open. Through the crack, she could see a figure hunched over Lily, trying to keep the child quiet. The sight made her stomach drop. Her daughter's small frame trembled, her eyes wide with terror, clinging to the intruder for safety because she didn't understand danger yet. Only that something was wrong. The single dad moved like a shadow, silent and precise. He positioned himself between the CEO and the intruder, then another small, almost imperceptible movement, and the man's attention shifted entirely to him. A subtle, sharp glare, a pause in breathing, and the intruder hesitated, unsure. In that pause, the man, this stranger who had become her daughter's guardian in seconds, acted. With a swift, practiced motion, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small but solid object, a stun device, silent except for the faint hum that only a trained ear could detect. He flicked it once, just enough to distract, and the intruder faltered, caught off guard. Lily, sensing a shift, instinctively leaned toward the stranger who had been her silent protector all along. "Lily," the CEO breathed, but the man's hand gently pressed against her shoulder, holding her back. "Almost there," he murmured, eyes never leaving the intruder. The intruder lunged suddenly, desperate, reckless. But the single dad anticipated the move, sidestepping with fluid precision, guiding Lily away from immediate danger, while simultaneously blocking the path. His movements were seamless, like someone who had rehearsed life-or-death scenarios hundreds of times. The CEO's mind raced. Who was this man? How could someone act so decisively in a situation she had barely comprehended? She had faced boardroom betrayals, hostile takeovers, media storms, but nothing like this. Here, in this quiet office building, someone else had the answers, the courage, the instinct to protect. Finally, after a tense moment that felt like eternity, the intruder stumbled backward, caught off guard, and in one last desperate move, turned to flee. The single dad made sure Lily was safely tucked behind his side, then in a heartbeat, he blocked the door with his body, eyes hard and unyielding. The intruder hesitated, panic overtaking whatever plan they had had, and then bolted. The sound of their footsteps fading into the distance was almost surreal, like the end of a nightmare that had been building with each heartbeat. The CEO finally allowed herself to breathe. Lily clung to the man instinctively, her small arms wrapping around his waist, as if she had known him all her life. The stranger knelt slightly, bringing his face to her level. "You're safe now," he said, voice calm, measured. "No one's going to hurt you." Lily sniffled, wiping tears from her cheeks, and whispered, "Thank you." The CEO's chest tightened. She wanted to step forward, to embrace her daughter, to scream at the intruder for terrifying her child, but she hesitated, overwhelmed by the quiet hero standing before her. She finally managed, voice trembling, I don't know how to thank you. You saved her." He gave a small, almost shy shrug, not boastful, not seeking praise. "Just doing what had to be done," he said simply. For the first time in hours, the CEO felt a flicker of relief. The immediate danger had passed, and yet, the weight of what had just happened pressed down on her. Someone had come into her life without warning, without explanation, and had acted decisively to protect the one thing she loved most. And in that moment, as she watched her daughter cling to the single dad, she realized something profound. Courage sometimes came in the quietest, most unexpected forms. And tonight, that courage had a name she didn't yet know, a man who had risked everything so a child could be safe. The office lights flickered overhead as the single dad guided Lily through the maze-like corridors, each step deliberate, silent, calculated. The faint hum of the building's air conditioning masked the sound of distant footsteps. The intruder hadn't gone far. The CEO followed cautiously, her heart thudding with a mix of fear and awe. Every corner they passed seemed to hide a potential threat, and the tension in the air was almost suffocating. Lily clutched the man's hand, her tiny fingers gripping his coat tightly, her wide eyes darting nervously from shadow to shadow. Are we going to be okay?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man crouched slightly, lowering his voice to a reassuring calm. "We will be. Just keep close to me and don't make a sound." The CEO's mind raced. She had spent her life solving complex business problems, negotiating deals under pressure, yet nothing could have prepared her for this. Watching this stranger move through the darkness with such precision, her rational mind clashed with a surge of emotion, gratitude, relief, and an awe she couldn't quite name. Suddenly, a metallic clatter echoed down the hallway. Both adults froze, their eyes scanning the shadows. The intruder was back, more desperate this time, trying to cut off their escape. The single dad's jaw tightened as he calculated the distance, the angles, the few seconds they had to act. He pivoted on one foot, dragging Lily behind him while keeping his body between her and the approaching danger. Without a word, he used a nearby fire extinguisher, tipping it over so it would block the hallway and create a temporary barrier. The hissing of the extinguisher created a cloud of mist, reducing visibility, confusing the intruder, and buying them precious seconds. The CEO's pulse raced. She wanted to intervene, to shout instructions, but she quickly realized that any attempt to help might do more harm than good. She had to trust him. And she did, because in that moment, she understood. This man had instincts she could only envy, a calm decisiveness forged by experience she couldn't imagine. They slipped through a side corridor, narrower and dimmer than the main hall, moving almost as shadows themselves. The man's eyes flicked constantly, reading every movement, anticipating every risk. He ducked under a low-hanging beam, gently pushing Lily along, then signaled for the CEO to follow. She felt the adrenaline surge, a dangerous thrill coupled with the overwhelming fear for her child's safety. Then came the sound of the intruder's voice, angry and frustrated, echoing down the vents, a sinister promise that they weren't finished. "You can't hide forever," it shouted. The single dad didn't respond. He kept moving, focusing only on Lily's safety. At one point, he guided them into a supply closet, pulling the door closed just as the intruder rounded the corner. The CEO pressed herself against the wall, barely daring to breathe, watching as he crouched beside her daughter, whispering reassurances that only Lily could hear. "They're trying to scare us, Lily," he said softly. "But you're safe. I've got you." The CEO couldn't help but marvel at him. He wasn't a superhero in a cape. He didn't have gadgets or backup teams. He had calm, resourcefulness, and courage, the kind that came from living through struggles that tested every fiber of a person's being. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The intruder's footsteps receded temporarily, but they knew it wasn't over. The single dad peeked through a narrow vent, assessing the situation. "We're going to need a better plan to get out," he murmured, almost to himself, before turning to the CEO. "You're going to follow my lead exactly. One wrong move, and it could all go wrong." She nodded, swallowing her fear, ready to do anything to protect her daughter. She could see the meticulous calculation in his eyes, the strategy forming even as they crouched in near darkness. Suddenly, an office chair skidded across the floor somewhere ahead. The intruder had returned. The single dad pressed a finger to his lips, then grabbed a fire alarm lever nearby. With a swift pull, the alarm blared throughout the building, lights flashing, sirens echoing. The chaos provided the perfect distraction. In the ensuing confusion, they darted toward the service stairs, moving as quickly as the building would allow. Lily's small feet stumbled against the concrete, but he kept her upright, her laughter of relief breaking through the fear for just a fleeting moment. The CEO followed, gasping but keeping pace, every nerve alert, every sense sharp. She realized something crucial. This man's bravery was not just physical. It was tactical, mental, emotional. He thought 10 steps ahead while carrying the weight of a child's safety on his shoulders. Finally, the stairwell opened onto the street below. The night air hit them like a wave, cold and fresh. The sounds of chaos inside were muted by the distance. The CEO bent over, hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. Lily clung to the single dad, exhausted but safe. He looked at her, eyes scanning the building one last time. "We're not completely safe yet," he said, voice calm, steady. But there was a quiet confidence that reassured both mother and child. They had survived the first wave, and he was still in control. The CEO's chest heaved with relief and a surge of gratitude she couldn't put into words. Somewhere in the shadows of the city, amidst danger and fear, she had found an unlikely hero. And tonight, she realized, heroes sometimes came in the most unexpected forms. The street outside was eerily quiet now, the city lights casting long, jagged shadows on the pavement. The cool night air did little to soothe the adrenaline still pumping through the CEO's veins. Her daughter, Lily, clung to the single dad's hand, her small body trembling slightly but safe, for the moment. But the danger was far from over. The intruder had not fled. They were watching, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. The single dad sensed it immediately, the subtle shift in the distant shadows, the faint sound of hurried footsteps approaching from behind the parked cars. His jaw tightened, his posture rigid, protective. "Stay close," he whispered to the CEO and Lily, his eyes scanning every movement around them. There was no room for hesitation now. Every decision would determine whether they survived this night. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, moving quickly, intent clear in its hunched, aggressive posture. The intruder had cornered them. Panic surged in the CEO, but the single dad's calm, methodical presence anchored her. He stepped forward, placing himself between the threat and the child. "You don't want to do this," he said, voice steady but firm. His stance was wide, ready to react, ready to protect. The intruder sneered, lunging forward with reckless fury. But the single dad anticipated the move, sidestepping smoothly while guiding Lily behind him. His movements were precise, almost choreographed, like he had trained for this exact scenario. A swift motion with his arm, and the intruder stumbled over a curb, losing balance. The CEO could barely process the tension, her mind racing. She had never felt so powerless and yet so awed. This man, a stranger, had taken control of a situation she thought was beyond her control. And he was doing it with a calmness, a confidence that made her feel that maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. The intruder recovered, furious now, and charged again. The single dad didn't flinch. He grabbed a nearby discarded pipe, swinging it just enough to block the intruder's path without causing fatal harm. It was a dance of danger, every movement calculated, every breath measured. Lily's eyes widened, her grip tightening on his coat, trusting him completely. "You're not going to hurt us," he said, almost gently, even as his every muscle tensed for action. The CEO's heart raced, watching him engage in a battle that was as much mental as physical. Every step, every decision, every slight diversion was designed to protect her daughter. A sudden shout from the intruder broke the rhythm, a taunt, a threat, a promise. The single dad's eyes narrowed, assessing his options. He couldn't risk getting cornered here, not with Lily in the balance. Spotting a narrow alley to their left, he moved with lightning speed, dragging Lily along and guiding the CEO to follow. The intruder tried to pursue, but the dad's quick thinking and knowledge of the terrain gave them the edge. The alleyway opened to a larger street, and for a brief moment, they had space. But the intruder wasn't done. They came at them from the side, swinging wildly, desperation in every move. The single dad reacted instinctively, blocking, redirecting, and finally using the intruder's momentum against them. A swift twist, a push, and the attacker tumbled into a stack of garbage bins, cursing and defeated for the moment. The CEO's pulse raced. She had never seen courage like this, never witnessed a man so calm under pressure, so willing to risk everything to save a child. She glanced at Lily, now safely tucked behind the single dad's side, and felt a swell of gratitude she couldn't even begin to articulate. But the danger wasn't entirely gone. The intruders scrambled to their feet, eyes wild, now more aware of the single dad's abilities. Another lunge, another desperate attempt. But the single dad's focus never wavered. With a final maneuver, he knocked the attacker off balance, sending them sprawling to the ground, incapacitated without serious harm. For a moment, silence reigned. The only sound was the ragged breathing of the CEO and the steady, controlled exhale of the single dad. Lily peeked out from behind him, her small hand reaching up to grasp his. "It's over," he said quietly, though his eyes scanned the surroundings, making sure. "You're safe now." The CEO's chest heaved with relief. She wanted to rush forward, to hug Lily, to embrace the man who had risked everything for her child. But she stopped herself, seeing the quiet resolve in him, the humility beneath his heroism. He didn't seek praise or recognition. He had acted purely to protect. Finally, she stepped forward, her voice trembling. I don't even know how to thank you. You saved her, you saved us." He shook his head slightly, brushing off the accolades. "Just doing what anyone would do if they could," he said. But there was a warmth in his eyes, a subtle reassurance that made the CEO realize something profound. True courage often comes quietly, without announcement, without expectation. As the first hints of dawn began to touch the city skyline, painting the buildings in shades of gold and pink, the danger of the night finally faded. The intruder was gone, the child was safe, and the single dad stood as a quiet sentinel, having faced fear head-on and won. The CEO looked at him, gratitude and admiration blending with awe. In those long, harrowing hours, she had witnessed heroism in its purest form. And in that moment, she knew one thing for certain. Her life, and her daughter's life, had been forever changed by the actions of a stranger whose courage was as unwavering as it was selfless. The first light of dawn spilled over the city skyline, soft and golden, illuminating streets that had been cloaked in the terror of the night just hours before. The chaos of the previous hours felt like a distant nightmare, yet the tension still lingered in the CEO's chest. She stood on the quiet street corner, her daughter, Lily, now tucked safely in the single dad's protective embrace. The little girl yawned and stretched, her wide eyes still shimmering with the remnants of fear, but she smiled faintly, the kind of smile that only comes after surviving a storm. The CEO took a tentative step closer, her heels silent against the concrete. She wanted to say something, anything, that could convey the gratitude, awe, and relief she felt bubbling inside her. Words seemed small compared to the magnitude of what had just occurred. Her mind replayed every moment, the panic in Lily's eyes, the sudden intrusion, and, above all, the single dad's unwavering courage. He turned slightly, his eyes catching the first rays of sunlight, scanning the empty street. Lily nestled closer to him instinctively, as if sensing that this stranger, this hero of the night, had become a guardian she could trust more than anyone else. The CEO felt a pang of emotion she hadn't anticipated. Awe, gratitude, and an unfamiliar warmth she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She began, her voice trembling. I don't even know your name. The single dad shook his head with a small, almost shy smile. It doesn't matter, he said quietly. Tonight, I just did what had to be done. But it does. The CEO pressed gently, her tone firm yet tinged with vulnerability. I need to know the name of the person who saved my daughter. The person who saved us. He looked down at Lily, who was now rubbing her sleepy eyes, and back at the CEO. My name is Daniel, he said simply. Daniel Harris. The CEO repeated it softly, committing it to memory as if saying it aloud would somehow make the reality of what had happened more tangible. Daniel Harris, she whispered, a mixture of relief and admiration threading through every syllable. I can never thank you enough. You risked your life for my child, for us. Daniel shrugged modestly, brushing off her words, but there was a quiet pride in his eyes. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it was the right thing to do. For a moment, silence settled between them, filled only by the soft morning breeze and the distant hum of the awakening city. Lily yawned again and tugged at Daniel's hand, prompting a small laugh from him. The sound was light, warm, human. The first sign that the night's terror was truly behind them. The CEO watched them, her chest tightening with a mixture of relief and gratitude. She realized, in that moment, that she had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just bravery, but selfless courage, the kind that didn't seek recognition, the kind that changed lives quietly, profoundly, without expectation. You saved her, the CEO said again, her voice softer now, filled with emotion. And somehow, you made it seem effortless. Daniel smiled faintly. It wasn't effortless, just necessary. He glanced at Lily, then back at her. And she's the most important reason to keep moving, to keep her safe. The CEO felt her throat tighten. She had always been in control, always in command, but this man, this single dad, had shown her a different kind of strength, the kind born from heart, not power, born from experience and compassion. She realized she wanted to know more about him, not just for gratitude, but for the quiet, profound reassurance he brought with him. Lily tugged gently at Daniel's hand, breaking the silence. Mommy, can we go home now? The CEO nodded, kneeling down to scoop her daughter into her arms. She looked at Daniel again, feeling the weight of unspoken words between them. We will never forget this night, she said softly. Not you, not what you did. Daniel nodded, finally allowing himself to relax a fraction. That's enough for me, he said. She's safe, and that's all that matters. The morning light brightened further, and the CEO turned toward the car waiting at the curb. She held Lily close, the warmth of her daughter's tiny body a soothing balm after the night of terror. Daniel stayed behind for a moment, watching them go, a quiet figure standing in the sunrise, a silent guardian whose actions had forever changed their lives. As the CEO and Lily disappeared around the corner, she realized something profound. Some people enter your life not for recognition, not for reward, but to remind you of what truly matters: courage, love, and the protection of those you hold most dear. And Daniel Harris had done exactly that. The street was calm now, the city awakening around them. Yet for the CEO, and for Lily, the events of the night had left an indelible mark. A man they had never known had risked everything to save them. And in doing so, he had rewritten their lives, not just through heroism, but through quiet, unwavering humanity. The CEO whispered to Lily as they walked toward the car. One day, we'll thank him properly. But tonight, we simply remember that we were safe, because someone incredible was there for us. Lily smiled sleepily, leaning against her mother. I know, Mommy. He's my hero. The CEO nodded, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mine too. And in the quiet morning, with the city stretching awake around them, the shadow of a stranger-turned hero lingered, a reminder that courage, love, and selflessness could appear in the most unexpected forms, forever altering the course of lives.